Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Shanicki, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'm the marketing director here at TriStar. For anyone who attended our previous webinar on Vuforia Chalk, I'd like to thank you for joining us this session on Vuforia Studio. It's a powerful industrial enterprise tool to rapidly design augmented reality content. This morning, we're joined today by Ryan Trump. He's an application engineer for PTC and part of the PTC Virtual Center of Excellence. In a moment, he'll give a brief demo on the Vuforia Studio and how to actually go about creating content. So Ryan, go ahead. I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. If you can confirm that you can see it whenever that pops up, that would be great.
Yep, looks like it's there.
All right. So the first part of today's demonstration is we're going to go ahead and step through a completed augmented reality experience. And this is going to be centered around a Bobcat data set. And it's going to be covering multiple different use cases here. So as we load in here, we see that we are modeled after an actual manufacturing environment here. So we do have all the little pieces in here. That's kind of just to show that you can bring in as many things as you want. If you want to model it after an environment, you have the ability to do so. Or if you just want to have something like the Bobcat show up, you also can do that as well. Now, right away, you're noticing that we do have some live IoT data coming in here, updating on these gauges here. Now, this is containing a variety of information, anything from load capacity to even fuel remaining in the Bobcat itself. So you can pull in any number of different IoT data pieces into this, depending on what you actually want to show within your models. There's also multiple ways to visualize the data within Studio as well. So if you don't want the 3D gauges, you can always build yourself out a dashboard, something similar to this, if you want to visualize some IoT data. Once again, this is just the same data that we were looking at just a second ago, just in a different format. Next up is going to be focusing a lot more on servicing. So we have some simple animations built out here. So we'll go ahead and step through a couple of these here. So for instance, we're going to do a plow installation here. So we're getting visual cues here. We have some arrows flashing down, pointing to these levers here. So you do have the ability to control every single piece of the CAD model as well. So as long as we step through here, it's going to give us text instructions along the way. And there's also a PDF document linked to this as well. So if any time you want to view the PDF of the actual Bobcat itself, you can do that too. So kind of just stepping through this here, it's a very simple animation just to basically show whoever may be working on this how to quickly and efficiently attach a new attachment to their Bobcat. Now just to kind of step through another one here, we have a little service tire here. Once again, these are all around servicing, customer self-service, maintenance, any of that stuff. And we're getting visual cues once again. So our lug nuts are flashing on the tire, and as well as we have an arrow pointing to where we're working at. And like the previous one, we do have text instructions as well. Now, one thing you'll notice differently on this one is that we actually have a tool coming in. So you do have the ability to bring in external tools as well. So if you have specialized tools to perform your service procedures or anything of that nature, you can bring that in as well. Or you can even opt for a parts list or a tool list for anyone that may be working on this. All right, so that one's done. The last little piece we have here is actually going to be a parts list. This is designed to really help anyone that's going to be working on this. Maybe they don't really know what parts are, what the part number is. And this way, if they have this ability here, you can kind of just click on the list, and it's actually going to start highlighting pieces depending on what you click. So if you don't know what a part number is or you don't know the part location, you can simply click on it. It'll highlight it on the model. And similarly, if you don't really know what the part is that you're looking at, you can also click on it in the model itself, and it will also select down the list below. Now, this can be done in multiple different ways and possible possibilities here for servicing. You know, if someone's working on it, they don't know the parts at, click on it, it'll show them the exact location. This way they can go grab it and get back and service this as soon as possible. So this was designed to be the art of the possible as far as an AR experience goes. You know, it was very simple as far as animations and things like that go, but it gives you a good idea of the things that you can do as far as animations, building in IoT data, and as well as even building in something like a parts list. So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears here and actually jump into a couple of slides to kind of just talk through a little bit about Vuforia Studio. So this is generally the 4 areas where we actually see value of AR in the enterprise itself. So you see we're broken down into 4 categories here. So we'll go ahead and start off at the top left with market and sell. And this really just redefines the way that you can actually advertise your products. So you can actually have visualizations and demonstrations of the product itself without even having the physical product. So for instance, if you're marketing some new type of water bottle or something like that, well, you can have a thing mark or something like that attached to it. So a potential customer can actually walk up, scan it, see all the different features, see the things that it can do, and all of that right there at their fingertips. This way they don't have to, you know, wait for someone to do like a video review or something like that. They can get the idea of what actually it does right there in the store. Now, this can also help your creation process as well. So you're able to do digital prototyping rather than having to do physical prototyping. So you can make changes very, very rapidly to anything that you're going to be creating. And this really helps with design reviews because you're able to do this very quickly rather than having to wait for the physical prototype to come in. Maybe you're milling it, maybe you're 3D printing it, anything like that. And that's generally going to have a lot of time in between designs. However, with Studio, you can have these designs done very, very quickly. You know, just a couple of minutes to switch out a model or something like that to get the next iteration up and ready to be reviewed. Now, the last 2 here, the operations and services, these are kind of have a little bit of overlap in between them. So for one, you can have performance dashboards built in. This, you know, gives you insights to help drive efficiency. So maybe you're seeing these machines are running at, you know, 60%, and you can easily crank it up to 80 without having any reduced quality in your actual products as well. Or you can even have real-time work instructions built in as well. So if there's a certain step in a procedure where you need to, you know, change something out, change a speed on something, you can have that delivered to them in real time. This way you're ensuring that there's not going to be as many errors and defects in the product itself. And then finally, it's going to be servicing. So service dashboards and instructions, pretty self-explanatory there. So you can have all of your service instructions built in on an augmented reality experience. So that the person is able to get a real-time view into how to fix something rather than having to do a traditional method like combing through an instruction manual, looking at drawings, anything like that. They can have the instructions and see what they have to do as they're doing it. So Vuforia Studio suite here. So this is actually a suite of applications here. The first one is going to be Vuforia View. Now this is the app that we just used to actually go ahead and take in the experience from that thing mark. This is free on the Android and iOS store. If you want to go ahead and download it, there's some experiences already cooked into the application so that you're able to start playing around with them and get an idea of things that are possible within Vuforia Studio. And Studio, this is where we're actually going to do all of the building. So this is where you do all of the drag and drop augmented reality authoring. And tying those together is going to be the experience service. So this is basically the cloud-based solution that connects Studio to View. So as you publish your experiences and you scan them on your phone, tablet, or HoloLens, the experience service is going to go ahead and push that experience to your phone so that you're able to view it. So having all of these here, this is solving the problem of creating an application for every single object. So instead of potentially creating thousands of different applications per product you can have this one application that can recognize your object and serve up the immersive experiences to a user whenever and wherever it's needed. And the best part about it is you can do all of this without writing a single line of code. So since we're talking about actually authoring one of these experiences without writing code, we're going to go ahead and actually jump into a demonstration of what this actually looks like and how you go about creating one of these augmented reality applications. So we're in Vuforia Studio here. When you load in, you're going to have all of your recent projects. So anything you've worked on previously is going to be here automatically for you, so you can go back at any given time and make changes or anything that you may need to do. But for this, we're going to go ahead and create a new experience, and we're going to be working with the Bobcat data set that we used previously in the intro to this demonstration. Now here's where you can select a project type, whether that be for mobile or you want to do something eyewear. So maybe we want to build a HoloLens experience or something like that. We would select on eyewear. But since we used an iPad earlier, we're going to go ahead and stick to that template and use a mobile project type for this as well. So loading in here, we're going to have our canvas at the direct center. So this is where all of the augmented reality authoring is going to happen. And there's a 2D section of this as well. So if we want to add in any 2D elements, maybe images, buttons, grids, pop-ups, PDFs, anything like that is going to be handled in the 2D section of the canvas. Now the 3D, that's where our model's all going to be loaded in and anything else. So before we actually get started, you always have to do some configuration to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. So that's just the experience or the themes there. It's however you want things to appear, light or dark. Experiences is where it starts to really matter. So this title that I'm entering in here, you want to make sure that you give this something meaningful, because whenever you scan your mark, that is the title that's going to appear for your experience. And that thing mark, I'm giving that a identification number. Every thing mark has its own unique identification number, so you want to make sure that you are entering the correct one per the mark you want to use. So next up is going to be the info. So the experience service here, this is just wherever your ThingWorx instance is deployed, or sorry, your Vuforia Studio instance is deployed. So we can quickly validate this to make sure that everything's on and working correctly. So it did give us the valid. And next up, we can go ahead and set our access. So if we want to set this to requires authentication, so if they aren't defined within our system, they're not going to be able to scan the experience. Or we can set it as public, which means anyone with the mark can go ahead and scan it and get the experience. My thing marks, this is just where any thing marks you have will be housed. So once that configuration's out of the way, we can actually go ahead and start building. So the first thing we're going to do is start with a thing mark widget here. So this is going to act as our anchor point for the experience itself. So what I mean by that is however we build in relation to this thing mark inside of Vuforia Studio is how it's going to appear in real life. So if we put something on its roof 5 feet above the thing mark inside of here, that's how it's going to appear in real life. So you want to keep that in mind whenever you're building. Next up is our model container widget, and this is what's going to house our 3D CAD data. So we're going to go ahead and upload some of that in, and we're going to be working with a PVZ file. Now this is a product view zip file, and it's an extremely lightweight representation of the actual geometry itself. So we're talking like 10 to 20% of the original size. And on top of that, there's also a CAD optimizer built in that'll give you 3 different levels of compression, ranging anywhere from around 100 to 500 times compression. So once it's actually loaded in, we can begin working with it. So realistically, if we wanted to just do a design review or something like that, we're technically done because we don't have to build in any animations or anything like that. But we're actually going to go ahead and switch over to Creo Illustrate, which is where we will be creating any animations that will be used in our augmented reality experiences. So Creo Illustrate is a technical documentation tool. We're only going to be using one section of it, and that's going to be the sequencing section. But there's a ton of different capabilities in here built in for building any technical documentation you may need. Okay, so we have our Bobcat loaded in and ready to go. And we're going to be creating a single animation today for our augmented reality experience. So like I said, we're going to be using the sequencing section here. So we're going to use our step editor. And this little piece here, you can kind of think of as like a CAD PowerPoint because each step is going to do something different. So we have our step one here, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and select every part that is associated with our bucket. So we'll go ahead and just select that through the bill of materials here. And we'll use our transform tool that automatically appears for us and go ahead and remove that from the Bobcat itself. There's also effects built in as well. So if we want to draw attention to it, we want to fade it out, anything like that, that'll be housed here. We'll use the fade out just to get rid of the part because we're going to be replacing that with a new part. Now there's also a little bit of configuration that you have as well. So if you want to change the way things behave. So for instance, by default, this moves and fades at the same time. And my personal preference is to have it move and then fade. So I'm going to change the percentages at which this animation starts. So it's going to move 0 to 90, then the final 10% will be it fading away. Okay, that's looking good. Next thing we can do is go back to our SBOM here and go ahead and grab our new attachment that we want to work with today. And we're going to be doing basically the exact opposite. So we're going to go ahead and fade this in. We'll rotate around here just so we can get a better view here. And I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball this up and line it up with the actual model itself to where it looks like it's attached. And that looks pretty good right there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do a little configuration on this as well. So we're just going to make the fade at the very beginning and then have the move for the rest of the duration of the animation. Okay, that's pretty good there. Now also at any given time, you can preview the sequence. So we want to make sure that everything's looking the way we want it to. So we'll go ahead and play this through. So we'll see that move and fade, and then our new attachment will come in and attach to the Bobcat. So that's pretty much exactly how I envisioned it when I was making it. So that's looking pretty good. So we can go ahead and actually publish this out now. So we're going to go ahead and publish this as a PVZ file, which once again, a lightweight representation of the actual geometry itself, which plays extremely well with Studio because of its lightweight file size. It really enables faster loading whenever we go ahead and scan the experience in. Let's go ahead and give it a quick name here, and then we'll jump back to Studio and we'll show you how exactly this all works together. Okay, so that's saved and published out. So we can go ahead and switch back now. And we need to go ahead and bring in our new file that we had just created. So we'll select on that, load that in, and now we're going to have the ability to take advantage of that sequence that we just created. So our model details will scroll down, and there's going to be a sequence with a drop down, and we're going to go ahead and select our figure one. Now our figure one is what is housing our animation. So that's linked up. Now the only thing we need is a convention to actually play this. There's a multitude of different ways that you can trigger the sequence within a model itself. So if you want to use like a click of the model, you want to use a button, anything like that. We're going to go ahead and use a toggle button for this scenario today. And there's a lot of images cooked into Vuforia Studio here to actually give your button some style. You're not married to these images, so you go ahead and can create your own via, like a Photoshop or anything, any common convention like that. So the thing we really care about here are these events. So I'm going to grab this pressed and drag it over to model one, which is going to give me a list of services. From there, I can select what I want that button to control. So for ours, we're going to be using play all today. So that'll play both steps of the sequence back to back. So we don't have to worry about pressing the button more than once. We'll bind that. And now that is actually ready to go, and that animation can be played. So for instance, maybe we're building this for a customer and they wanted some form of warning label added in. So basically letting people know that, hey, don't service this while the machine's operational or on or anything of that nature. So we'll go ahead and toss in a quick label. Okay, warning label's looking pretty good there. So the next thing we'll do is go ahead and bring in a little bit of IoT data here. And we're going to take advantage of the 3D gauge here, similar to what we saw earlier in the demonstration with the Bobcat. We'll go ahead and scale it up here, make it a little bit bigger, and then we'll take advantage of the coordinate system built in to help it zero it out right to the model. This way we can position it from there where we want it. And the great thing about these 3D gauges is that no matter which way you're facing in the experience, that gauge is always going to be looking at you. So you can see kind of here when I move it, that gauge is always going to be facing wherever the camera will be. Once again, ton of images built in for this, and you can create your own. We're going to stick with out of the box for today. And we're going to navigate over to this external data pane over here. And this is where this is linked up to our ThingWorx environment. So ThingWorx is our industrial innovation platform that you can, it's a great data visualization platform. It handles a lot of different data sources, can connect to virtually anything. We're going to be taking advantage of a simulator that I have built in here to actually go ahead and link up some RPM data to this actual gauge. And it's just another simple, just click and drag, and that's now linked up. So this is ready to publish out and ready to be viewed by whomever may need it. So that kind of wraps up the quick demonstration of Vuforia Studio that I was wanting to give everyone today. As you saw, we didn't do any coding whatsoever. Everything we did was drag and drop. We used a little bit of Creo Illustrate as well to create our animations. So as you see, Vuforia Studio is a very powerful tool, very easy to use, and it's very quick to bring value to you and your customers as well.
Great, thank you, Ryan. We did have a couple questions. I don't know if you can see them.
I don't know how to get
the
to the
first question. We had someone ask what experiences that it can be viewed on iPhone, iPad, laptop, Android, iOS, things like that.
Were they asking like devices or?
Yes, exactly. So what devices can you use to actually access these experiences?
So there's a lot of different devices out there. So virtually any iPhone, I believe it's from like iOS 10.0 and above will work with it. I'm not completely sure on that. I know iOS 11 and above will support the spatial and the object tracking. There's Android. You can use a HoloLens. There's Vuzix devices. There's RealWear devices. There's a lot of different things out there that you can use to take in these experiences.
And then, of course, the desktop software application.
Yeah, so there's a Windows application too for like Windows 10. So you can do it on Windows 10.
Okay. And then another question, can Vuforia Studio be used with other CAD software? You demonstrated Illustrate.
So there's a variety of different CAD data formats that Studio can accept. Generally, if you're going to be building animations, you're going to use Creo Illustrate, and Creo Illustrate can also handle a lot of different file types, and will always export into that PVZ format.
Okay, so it's basically as long as it can export into that format.
Correct.
Great. Unless there's any other questions, thank you, Ryan. I encourage everyone to visit our website. I'm going to post it here into the chat. There's going to be a little bit more information, some success stories, and also a trial link. There's going to be a recording of this webcast sent to everyone who attended, and it will be available on our website's resource center shortly. We do have another webinar on the Vuforia Chalk, which will have a live presentation on how it's used, and that's more of an in-field application that you use on basically, iPads, iPhones, Android devices for remote assistance. If you have any more questions after this, don't hesitate to contact us. And again, Ryan, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And thank you to everyone that attended. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.